Today on the program, why are congressional Democrats so interested in Family Research Council's tax status? We'll tell you what their concerns are and why every church in America should care. In addition, the Attorney General of Washington State has opened an investigation into a Christian university in Seattle because they require their teachers to abide by a Christian code of conduct. We'll tell you more about that later in the program. Also, a pro-life constitutional amendment was defeated by voters yesterday. We'll talk about why this shouldn't be a cause for despair for the pro-life cause in America. But our top story today, as Senate Democrats plow forward with the reconciliation deal that they are calling the Inflation Reduction Act, Republicans in Washington have become increasingly aggressive in pointing out the bill will not only raise taxes, but will also fail to reduce the inflation that has skyrocketed the past 12 months under President Biden. Most of the attention has focused on Democrat Senator, Kristen Sinema of Arizona, who has still not indicated which way she is leaning. It appears she will determine whether this bill passes or fails in the Senate. And joining me now to discuss it is Congressman Ron Estes. He serves on both the House Ways and Means Committee and the Joint Economic Committee and represents the 4th District of Kansas. Congressman Estes, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, great. Thank you for having me on.
We're glad to have you. First, I had to lead off the show with some terrible news today. Your colleague, you serve on the Ways and Means Committee together, Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, was taken tragically from us. What's your response to the news today?
It really is a sad day, a sad story for us to deal with. Jackie she's such a wonderful person. You know, she was one of the first members of Congress to help me when I first ran for office, and you know, she puts her heart and soul into the work she did for her constituents in Indiana, and continuously works to make things better for America.
On that note, I want to talk about some developments from your state of Kansas, which are really headline news nationally. There was a Value Them Both amendment, a pro-life amendment that would have given the legislature in Kansas the authority to regulate and restrict abortion in that state. It did not pass. What's your reaction to that news?
Yeah, it really is unfortunate about what happened yesterday. There was the actual constitutional amendment wasn't about abortion restrictions per se, as much as it was to correct a ruling that the Kansas Supreme Court issued 3 years ago that said abortion was spelled out in the Kansas Constitution dating back to 1861. And that's just not what's there. And really what the amendment was about was to put the responsibility in the hands of the legislature to address what kind of rules we might have for, you know, any kind of medical clinic or medical procedure, including addressing things that abortion or other things that might be promoted. And unfortunately, there was a lot of money that came in from out of state, and a lot of confusion was created in people's minds about what really was being voted on and what it really meant. And there probably was some wording in terms of the way the constitutional amendment was spelled out, which created some of that confusion. But unfortunately, now it's even still being mischaracterized as it was a vote to expand and maintain abortion rights. So we need to make sure that we're clear in our message, and we make sure that we correct those erroneous comments that are out there, and in some cases distortions or even outright lies about what has happened and what we want in America. You know, when we look at you know, typically across America, you know, 80% of Americans, you know, don't think we should have abortion in the third trimester. And, you know, that's a piece that we need to talk about moving forward.
That's a really good point. The idea that people should have the right to abortion on demand anytime, anywhere at taxpayers' expense is truly an extreme position. And even after the reversal of Roe versus Wade, and even especially after the reversal of Roe versus Wade, that debate is going to continue state by state. But Congressman Estes, I also want to get an update from you on what's happening in Washington, D.C. this week. The reconciliation bill has been is moving in the Senate specifically right now. You made a comparison on Twitter this week, and you referred to it as Build Back Better. Is this how you see this? Is this just the reincarnation of a Build Back Better plan that President Biden failed to get through earlier in his term?
It really is. I mean, they haven't stopped talking about Build Back Better and negotiating on what they were going to include in the latest version of the Build Back Better. And actually, the concern I have is it's really not building as much as being concerned about bankruptcy and where President Biden and Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin are wanting to take the country. As you mentioned, it's bad for America from the standpoint of it raises taxes. Even President Obama and even Joe Manchin says that it's wrong to raise taxes as we're going into a recession. It increases spending, government spending, and on the front end of this bill, which is the cause of inflation. I mean, that's really how we got into this inflationary mess now was when once President Biden passed his ARPA bill, and then doubled down with the infrastructure bill that they passed. It just threw a lot, trillions of dollars out into the marketplace. And what that's done is we've seen a constant rise of inflation over the last year and a half since then. And so that's going to cause more inflation, not reduce it. There is some accounting gimmicks that make it sound like it will reduce the deficit, but those are all focused at the end of the 10-year period and probably will not come to pass. That's one of the things I've seen in my 5 years in Congress is that we talk a lot about a 10-year budget or a 10-year window, and frequently the year or two later, after coming up with a plan, it gets revised and moved backwards. So we need to we need to really take a step back and look at this new version of BBB that they're trying to push on the American people, and it's not good. It's not good for job creators. I mean, it'll raise taxes on small businesses and even break the campaign promise that President Biden said when he was campaigning was that he wouldn't raise taxes on people less than $400,000. And in fact, the nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation has issued a ruling last week in terms of saying that it's going to increase by roughly $16.5 billion taxes on people making under $200,000 a year.
We're speaking with Congressman Ron Estes from the great state of Kansas. And Congressman, obviously, congressional Democrats have a different take on this legislation. Here's how Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer described what he's referring to as the Inflation Reduction Act. Let's play clip 2.
The Inflation Reduction Act achieves three main goals: lowers prices for prescription drugs, lowers energy costs for average citizens, and fights climate change in the most significant way that we've ever done, and reduces the deficit and inflation while causing many good-paying jobs.
Congressman Estes, that all sounds wonderful. What's your reaction?
It sure does sound wonderful. Unfortunately, it's kind of the propaganda spin that we're used to seeing coming out of particularly, some of the Democrat leaderships. But, in terms of calling this an inflation reduction bill, it's not going to reduce inflation. It's going to increase government spending, which is the main driver of inflation. You go back and compare the ARPA bill that was, the victory in President Biden's first 100 days. That really was one of the key drivers of the inflation that we're suffering through now. And to go out and spend more money on top of that is going to make it worse. It doesn't really lower energy costs on Americans. What it's going to do is raise their taxes and force them to pay higher taxes so that they can put more giveaways in for special interest groups. So that's not a benefit for the average American through that process. So it really is the propaganda spin that they're putting out there on trying to sell this bill, and it's unfortunately what we've seen all too often.
Congressman, tell us, in your assessment, what would the impact be of this bill on the average American family?
Well, what it's going to do first and foremost, it'll start raising taxes. And what that's going to do is it's going to hit small businesses. It's going to hit the individuals making less than $200,000 a year. Middle income and low income folks are going to hit and have to pay an extra over $16.5 billion in extra taxes, which on top of what they're having to pay for higher groceries and higher gas prices right now, to take more money out of their pocketbook. And it's going to then generate more government spending, which is going to drive additional inflation, which is going to further hurt the average American pocketbook. I mean, my constituents in my district and across Kansas and really across the country are already suffering through, having gas prices go up double over the last year and a half, having things like bacon and meat and milk, all rapid price increases. I saw a story today talking about the percentage of people that are starting to have to take second jobs just to afford the inflationary increases in the daily cost of living.
It is affecting everyone. And Congressman, if you can, in about 30 seconds, it looks like Kristen Sinema is going to decide if this passes in the Senate.
It really is a quirk in the way the reconciliation process is out there, is that by having 50 Democrat senators and Vice President Harris to break the tie, if all the senators vote for it, they can ram something through and then ram it through in the House. And it's really unfortunate that this is the situation we're in America, and we can't sit down and come up with good, thoughtful, common sense legislation that works to help make America better.
Congressman Ron Estes, we greatly appreciate your time today and your service to our country. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you.